Welcome to the Jevis Brief, only on Contra Radio Network.
Hello again, Intelligentsia, second show for the week. I told you I would be back if I found something that I consider to be significant, and I have. Last show I discussed why I don't always follow the news organizations here in the United States, because the mainstream media thinks that they are your babysitters, they're your caretakers. They're only going to tell you things that they think you can handle. In other words, we're all like the kindergarten class, and the mainstream media as the teachers, and they're going to instruct you and tell you what you need to know. Way wrong answer. Instead, as I told you, I follow some of the British news publications, because they're going to print stuff that the American mainstream media won't. And then for Europe, I usually follow the Daily Mail. And for the Pacific area, I usually follow the South China Sea Daily. Yeah, good stuff. Anyways, some things I came across yesterday, and I find it somewhat disturbing. And maybe you will too. This is not meant to get you panicked. It is meant to get you prepped. Start thinking about, if you haven't been thinking about what your exit plan is, or shelter plan is, or your survival plan is, or just, your prepper plan. Yeah, surviving and prepping, two different things. We're going to get into that today. However, now is the time to make your decision. Because when the crisis strikes, the moment of truth has passed. That is, once you have a critical incident, the moment for prepping is over. It's done. Now is the time to do it. Now. Not later. Not next month. Not next couple months. Not in a couple weeks. Now. You need to be thinking about these things now. I'm going to tell you why. And they'll all become clear as we get going on this episode. The first things I want to talk about are the 8 warning signs before a Russian nuclear strike. Cleric Joust wrote this on March 13th, mind you. So this is almost, 2.5, 3 weeks old. But what you need to understand is that some of these things have already happened. These 8 warning signs. So pay attention, because we're at the goal. Because the next topic is you're going to start seeing the correlation here. Oh, and by the way, if I'm Hunter Biden, I'm on the phone to my deranged, old, doddering father and say, Dad, you better get everything you can to Ukraine, because we don't want this stuff coming out. It's bad enough they got my laptop. Let's not compound the problem, Dad. Yeah. Can you imagine being on the phone with Biden for like 10 minutes? Your head would be spinning. Yeah, it would. And you notice how the White House still has not released a transcript of the call with President Xi in China from last week. That was a 2-hour call. I'm sure at one point Biden's kind of wandering and meandering about whatever. And she's going, are you kidding me? I wonder if he just got up and just walked around his office, ate, had lunch, come back, and Biden's still, because I'll tell you, it was Biden during the 2020 campaign who said to Trump, a president's words matter. I don't ever want to hear him say that ever again. Because apparently he don't. Because this lunatic's going to say something stupid And then we're going to be in trouble. And by stupid, I mean actionable stupidity. That's what I'm talking about. To the point that Putin just panics and hits the button. All right. So let's talk about this. Now, as the Russian invasion of Ukraine rages on, the president of the Russian Federation, Vladimir Putin, has been threatening the rest of the world. Now, we've talked about this before. No matter what the West does, Putin's going to say it's an escalation. You have to understand that and accept it. All right? So the basic threat is that if we don't stand back and let him do what he wants, he's going to go nuclear. Now, whether that means an all-out nuclear war of tactical nukes targeted at whichever country raises his ire at that particular moment, or it's a strategic strike. Either way, one tactical nuke could easily lead to an all-out nuclear war, especially if it exploded in a member country of the NATO alliance. Now, Putin, who is part of the KGB, dreams of a return to the glory days of the defunct empire, the Soviet Union, and his attack on Ukraine seems to be a step in his campaign to make that happen. Remember, he wrote an essay back in September or so, in which he describes what he wants to do. I will say this for the Russians. They telegraph their punches. They do. I said it on the build-up before the invasion. The Russians are telegraphing their punch. They're not at the border yet, but they were going. But they're here. But they'll be there. And they kept doing it. I kept telling you here on this show, the Jeffers Brief. Go back, listen to it. The record's there. And I'm telling you, they're telegraphing their punch. They're telling the world what they're going to do. Except, of course, you got Biden. And who the hell, you don't believe in the deep state? Who the hell's running this country? You got Biden lipping off about all kinds of strange shit. And then you got his cabinet saying, no, that's not what he means. That's not what he means. Somebody saying, yes, I do. Yes, I do. So, anyways, you get me going here. So, unfortunately for Ukraine, they aren't a part of NATO, but several of the countries sending them military aid are. Now, should Putin decide that such aid is crossing the line of what neutral countries are allowed to do during war, his response could very well be to attack the offending country with a nuke. Now, according to the Mutual Defense Clause, Article 5 of the NATO Treaty, that attack would require a military response from every member of NATO, including the United States. I don't think, last I heard, Germany had let their army actually denigrate or degenerate into they're standing bare. Yeah, they're there, but they really don't. They at this point in time, because the German government has let they let the United States to pick up the tab for their defense. Basically, is what we're talking about here. It's very unlikely that the Germans could fulfill all of their NATO obligations. But again, you don't hear that from the mainstream media here in the United States. So anyways, so that line may have already been crossed with countries sending military hardware to Ukraine. Worse than that, Jen Psaki, also known as Peppermint Patty, the White House spokesperson, publicly told reporters that the United States was providing intelligence information to Ukraine, something that is considered casus belli, or which is Latin for a cause of war, as it constitutes taking sides as a party to the hostilities. While most Americans support Ukraine in this war, the fact is we are taking sides by providing intelligence information to Ukraine is something that should have been kept secret. That's another thing. This Biden administration, stop talking. Shut the hell up. Every time they talk, they say something. One department has no idea, doesn't get the memo. Biden comes out there and blathers, whatever. And then the rest of his administration goes, oh, no, that's not what's going on. That's not what he means. Again, deep state. Somebody else is pulling the strings. Because it becomes, every day, it becomes more clear, Biden isn't up to the job. And for you fools that voted for him, it's on you. Idiots. Haven't got the brains God gave trees, they don't. So the question which faces us now is whether Putin will push the button. The only thing stopping him is fear of retaliation. Now, that fear may not be all that much if he thinks President Biden won't retaliate. And he won't. Biden is absolutely scared shitless of Putin. Absolutely terrified. Absolutely terrified. See, that's why it was good to have Trump in there, because he was unpredictable. Trump, like Reagan, didn't fit into the Russians' matrix of what ifs. Now, let's talk about the signs that have already happened, because this is what we've done, right? Now, let's start with a few very real signs that have already happened, okay? I got my coffee, by the way. Get more caffeinated. Sometimes I drink so much caffeine, I think I'm the great Cornholio, right? Start walking around the house, chasing the dog and the cat. Now, while some of these signs are not as serious as the ones to follow, there is a progression in this process. The fact that these have already happened just means that we are already on the road towards that button being pushed. By the way, maybe we should talk about America's death zones, and that is nuclear targets. And there are lots of them all over this country. So let's talk about this, right? Now, all of this started out with Putin making some rather clear threats about his willingness to use nuclear arms in the current conflict. Those threats have continued, some openly, while others have been references that are a bit more obscure. Either way, the message has gotten through and world leaders are taking it seriously. Now, first one, Putin going into hiding. It's normal for political leaders to go into hiding during a war, as they are prime targets, but if anything, that is even more likely when they are getting ready to launch a nuclear missile strike. As best we know, Putin isn't suicidal, so even though he is willing to gamble with the life of his country, he apparently isn't willing to gamble with his own life or the lives of his family. He has gone into hiding. We're going to talk about that. There are apparently those who are looking for Putin either to deal with him as snipers do or take him prisoner as a war criminal. Side note, can you imagine all of Putin's top military guys stand in a circle talking about the ship that the Ukrainians sunk? Can you imagine them pointing the fingers? You go tell them. No, not my ship. You go tell them. You know what happened? They probably told the admiral, hey, it's your ship. You lost it. You go tell them you lost it. Yeah, can you imagine that? Oh, like a freaking comedy show. Would have loved to hear that one. But anyways, so one Russian oligarch has offered $1 million reward to anyone in the Russian military who takes Putin prisoner, claiming that it is their responsibility to do so. $1 million buys a whole hell of a lot of rubles, my friends. So raising the readiness level of the Russian missile forces. About a week ago, Putin raised the level of readiness for Russian nuclear forces, either as an act of brinksmanship or in preparation for using them. We just don't know. In either case, it means that those forces can launch much faster than they could if they were still at peacetime level of readiness. While they are not at their highest possible level with the finger poised over the button, they're close. There is no button, my friends. It's a phone call, the codes are sent out, keys are turned. There is no button. I wish they would stop using it. All right, demonstration of attack. The artillery attack at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the largest nuclear plant in Europe, can be seen as an escalation of hostility with nuclear overtones. There is no way that the plant was targeted accidentally, not in today's world of computerized weapons of satellite position and locating. While Russia doesn't use a GPS satellite system, they have their own. And I don't believe in coincidence, so it seems very suspicious that the only reactor that they fired upon, the one that caught fire, was down for maintenance. That indicates some rather current and accurate intelligence information. By the way, we're going to talk about those fools in a moment. Chances of it blowing up are minimal, and if an artillery round went long and hit one of the reactors, they could have claimed it was an accident. Now, let's talk about the signs that are yet to come. And this was March 13th, this was put out, so let's take a look at it, all right? So far, the signs we're seeing don't indicate that Putin's finger is poised over the button, but it looks like he's keeping it near. Whether or not he decides to push it will depend on his reading of the situation, nothing else. It doesn't matter so much what the other countries of the world do at this point, as now he interprets their actions, or how he interprets it. Like I said, you got Biden screaming regime change. I didn't say that. That doddering, slobbering fool. So, he has started this war, and he's got to come out with some gain or he will lose face, something he can't afford and his ego won't allow. So far, they've got 17,000 dead. And they're just crossed over the 30-day mark. That's a lot of casualties. Now, while Russian nuclear forces are at a heightened alert and readiness level, they are not yet at their highest possible level. There is some room for it to go up, something that Putin will want to do before giving the order to launch. Russia still has a number of liquid-fueled ICBMs. What does that mean? It means the fuel used in these rockets is highly corrosive, so it is not stored in the rockets, but rather in nearby tanks. It takes some time to fuel those rockets once the order is given. Now, raising the alert level to the maximum level will also mean fueling those rockets so they are ready to fly. If Putin gave the order before fueling them, the attack would be either delayed or carried out in a haphazard manner, hence the importance of fueling them beforehand. How about Putin cutting off communication with foreign governments? We haven't seen that yet. As a matter of fact, yesterday, Russia said it's still vital that we talk to the United States. So anyone who has watched a Western knows that there's a time when the gunmen stop talking and just stare at each other, waiting for the other guy to draw. Well, that's Hollywood's rendition of things. It is based upon the reality that there is usually a pause before an attack. When Putin reaches a point where he's seriously contemplating a nuclear attack, he will stop accepting calls from the other heads of government. On one hand, he won't want to give away his planned actions, and on the other hand, he says he won't want to give them a chance to talk him out of it. There's also a chance that Putin will break off formal communications with some governments, closing embassies and recalling his ambassadors before attacking. Well, the way it's working out in Europe, they're throwing Russian diplomatic personnel out of their countries right and left. Hell, they threw out 43 yesterday. I think it was Italy, Spain, and Ireland. All at the same time. It's like, what the hell? So, that's probably unlikely, as it would telegraph his intentions too well built if he started recalling the ambassadors. But if it does happen, we can be sure that his finger is poised by the button he's about to press it. Moving other government leaders out of Moscow. We're going to talk about this. Don't go anywhere. It's fairly clear that Putin and his family are out of Moscow in some secret location. Rumor has it he has a private bunker complex somewhere in the mountainous Altai Republic. But at the moment, the rest of the Russian government is in place and operating. But the Russians, like our own government, have plans for moving their political leadership out of Moscow in the event of a nuclear war. Putin is more likely to make that move, protecting his own government before ordering the launch. Now, I've talked about this one, moving Russian troops out of harm's way. Well, maybe. The last move that Putin will probably make before launching a strike is to move his own forces out of the danger zone. They're talking about pullbacks. That would include grounding aircraft, having ships move farther out to sea, and having troops disengage if they are too close to the projected epicenter of the explosion. It is unlikely that all his troops will be moved, and he still has a conventional war going on. Only those who are close enough to the targeted cities will be moved in order to protect those troops. Now, that may look like a retreat, but it will be more like the quarterback dropping back before he throws the ball. Those troops will be regrouping, rearming, and preparing to go back on the offensive as soon as the nuclear part of the attack is over. We're seeing that now. We're seeing it now. Now, this is from the Daily Mail. Now, you have not heard this on the American mainstream media. You haven't. But because I pay attention to it, I shall give you the information. Headline: Putin and his high command are already hunkering in secret bunkers after the Kremlin spokesman said Russia would use nukes in the face of existential threat. This was from yesterday, as a matter of fact. New evidence has emerged that Vladimir Putin and his highest-ranking commanders are running the war in Ukraine from top-secret nuclear bunkers. Movements of planes used by top Kremlin officials show Putin may be in a hideaway near Surgut in western Siberia, it has been claimed. Siberia is a really big place. His defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, has been mysteriously absent for several weeks, sparking rumors about his health. But he is believed to be in a bunker near Ufa in the Urals, 725 miles east of Moscow, according to investigative journalist Christo Grozev. This theory is backed up by his daughter, Ksenia Shoigu, 31, visiting Ufa for an estimated 3 days from March 22nd, with mounting speculation the defense minister is suffering from heart problems. She also abruptly barred public access to her Instagram, where she had posed with her baby in the blue and yellow colors of Ukraine. The suspected use of the high-security nuclear bunkers is concerning, as it leads to suggestions Putin may be prepared to deploy nuclear weapons, a move that would lead to inevitable reprisals. Well, it's true. Now, I could play the video for you of this investigative reporter. I don't speak Russian and I don't speak Ukrainian. Whether you do or not, I don't know. But I do. You know what? I should play it. You know why? Believe it or not, we have some downloads, some listeners in Russia. Let me think about this. This might be well worth it. It's only 1 minute and 12 seconds. You know what? I'm going to play it. You know, I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it. It's 1 minute and 12 seconds. And this is the investigative journalist who suspects Putin's based in a bunker near Surgut. Yeah? Hey, cat, what are you doing? Knock it off, you goofy bastard. I'm going to... You... Got a new cat. Got a rescue cat. He's part Bengal. Gorgeous, but damn near psychotic. Well, he's less than 3 years old, so he's still a teenager. Oh, he's still... I'm just waiting for him to start yelling no, and I hate you, and slam the door when he leaves. All right, here's the video.
Если в плане, в стратегии, военной стратегии Кремля остается вариант с ядерным ударом, а он остается, нельзя им потом начинать прятать военное руководство, они заранее должны быть спрятаны. Так что я абсолютно уверен, что он находится в бункере, так условно говоря. Проследив его самолеты, его передвижение его самолета, на котором он обычно перелетает, мы видим очень часто, практически ежедневные вылеты в Уфу, и поэтому, зная, что в этом регионе тоже есть такие очень защищенные бункера, то это дает очевидный ответ.
А по вашей версии, Путин там же находится или где-то еще?
Скорее всего, не там, потому что мы видим другие перелеты, которые более засекречены, опять государственные правительственные самолеты, которые летают за Уралом, но они отключают свои бортовые транспондеры где-то в области Сургута. То есть, видимо, последняя фаза, она довольно засекречена, и, скорее всего, там есть именно этот более элитный, так сказать, более элитный бункер.
All right. There you go. That's, for those of you that speak Russian or Ukrainian, here you go. Put it out there. All right. Anyways, Grozev, who's the investigative reporter who has links to British investigative outlet Bellingcat, said, I am absolutely sure that Shoigu is in a bunker. Tracking the movement of his plane, we see very frequent flights to Ufa. Knowing that there is also protected bunkers in this region, this gives an obvious answer about his place of residence. In an interview with Ukraine 24 channel, he told the TV anchor Yevgeny Kislov, this is our very justified version. I believe in it, and I consider it to be a purely analytical conclusion. There can't be any other conclusion. If the Kremlin's war strategy assumes a nuclear strike, and it does, as Dmitry Peskov, who's Putin's spokesman, himself said on CNN a couple of days ago, then there cannot be any other version. If there is a decision of a potential nuclear strike, they can't hide the military leadership afterwards. They have to be hidden beforehand. He says, I am absolutely certain he is in a so-called bunker, and by trailing the plane he usually flies, we see very frequent, almost daily flights to Ufa. Knowing this region has those very protected bunkers leads us to the obvious conclusion. He believes Putin has another bunker elsewhere. Most likely, he is elsewhere because we are seeing other flights, and they are more classified than the flight that goes to Ufa. These are state planes, and they switch off their transponders somewhere around Surgut. This is Russia's oil capital and is some 1,800 miles northeast of Moscow. It looks like the final phase is quite secretive, and most likely there is a more elite bunker there with the elite of the government. Previously, there had been claims Putin had moved his close relatives to a bunker in the Altai Mountains, some 1,100 miles southeast of Surgut and 2,360 miles east of Moscow. Grozev also suggested that Russia's chief of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, Valery Gerasimov, is operating from a bunker. Coincidentally, the defense minister's daughter, Ksenia Shoigu, seems to have been in Ufa between March 22nd and the 25th. So she posted on her Telegram channel, today we are in Ufa on a working visit, and that was on March 22nd. Local newspapers reported that the financier was visiting at the personal invitation of the head of the region on March 24th and 25th. And she is president of the Russian Triathlon Federation and promotes a charity called the Hero League. She visited the Patriot military park under construction near Ufa. One theory is that Putin took time out in the pandemic in November or December 2020 when he visited Sarov and later Tobolsk, which is several hundred miles from Surgut, to inspect emergency bunkers. So there. Now, take it for what it's worth. You know what? There's something else here. Here's a Russian professor who claims Putin has hidden family in a nuclear bunker. Again, I don't speak the lingo, but it's 25 seconds, and it's worth it. I'm going to put it out here because, like I said, we are getting downloads in Russia. Believe it or not, I was surprised when I saw it. I go, what? But nonetheless, here we go, my friends. Just so you can hear. It's 25 seconds worth.
На выходных днях семья президента Путина была эвакуирована в специальный бункер, подготовленный на случай ядерной войны. Этот бункер находится...
Hold on.
На выходных днях...
I hate when they do this. Bastards.
На выходных днях семья президента Путина была эвакуирована в специальный бункер, подготовленный на случай ядерной войны. Этот бункер находится на территории Республики Алтай. Это на самом деле не бункер, это целый подземный город, оборудованный по последнему слову науки и техники. Я надеюсь, вам это о чем-то говорит, если президент отправляет свою семью в этот бункер.
Well, there. Okay. I've done my good deed for the day. Now, for you preppers out there, you know what? Where is it? It's not this one. Here we go. If you're new to prepping, I don't care where you are on the planet, sometimes you ask yourself, is it ever too late to prep? I'm going to give you 3 warning signs to watch for, all right? Maybe in spite of your overall optimism about life, there will be a time when it really is too late to prep, and that time could arrive at any time. Everything's the same until it isn't. So let's think about this. The unthinkable has already happened during the COVID pandemic. Remember, now 2 years ago, when the entire countries began shutting down one by one, you couldn't get into Canada or Mexico or England. That was unthinkable, and yet it happened in a matter of days. Then, of course, there was the famous toilet paper shortage. No Purell, and most everyone began hiding in their homes. When you start to reflect on the past 2 years, you're going to come to the conclusion that yes, there may very well come a time when it is too late to prep. When the moment of truth arrives, the time for prepping is over. Well, let's talk about, there's an important difference between survival and prepping. I'm not talking about it's too late to survive. That's a whole other animal. Some of you could survive because of your skills and locations. Others have been prepping for so long they could easily hunker down for months, maybe even years at a time. Survival is really what happens in the aftermath of an event. And there are all sorts of creative ways to survive and get by, one day at a time. Prepping is different. Prepping is taking action right now and being proactive so when a survival situation occurs, you're ready. Your preps are in place to mitigate the effects of that event. So here are some warning signs that we've come up with to signal that it's too late to prep. Are you ready? These are indicators that it's time to hunker down with whatever you have and wherever you are. Connect with your close friends and relatives and prepare to weather whatever comes. Let me think here. Are there relatives I have that I do not want to be in my... Yes, there is. Because I would end up killing them. Warning sign number 1 is you don't have easy access to your money. Long lines at the banks, people lining up early in the day to make transactions, limited banking hours, ATMs run out of cash, banks limiting withdrawal amounts, new government regulations that limit cash withdrawals or other types of transactions, and you can no longer make the purchases you would like in order to prep. Warning sign number 2. It's more difficult or impossible to easily travel. The government regulates gas purchases, set mileage allotments. Gas prices become so expensive as to effectively limit travel. Checkpoints between states or even counties to ensure regulations are enforced. Movement is life, Brad Pitt's character says in World War Z. When freedom of movement becomes nearly impossible, so does survival. And getting to a bug-out location is no longer possible due to these measures. Warning sign number 3. Ordinary purchases are more difficult to make. Increased number of empty store shelves, more competition for goods and services. Prices skyrocket until even the basics are no longer affordable. Limits on purchases set by retailers or government entities. We've seen that. Saw it in the last 2 years. We're seeing it today. In fact, I saw it today this morning when I went to the grocery store. First time I saw this. I wasn't even paying attention. Going down, going to grab some eggs, right? Oh, here are the eggs, 79 cents a dozen. I'm in. Turn around, look. It's the freaking Pillsbury display case. It's practically empty. Still, it's got a sign. Demand for this product is extraordinarily high, limit of 2. I'm thinking, what is it that has Pillsbury so far behind? I don't know. But anyways, a black market develops. And you can no longer stock up. You can no longer stock up on even the basics due to shortages and regulations. These 3 warning signs signal an end to getting prepared easily or quickly. Now, I don't have a magic 8 ball, boys and girls, to say whether any of these warning signs will happen, or if they do, when that might be. But all 3 signs are very easy to imagine. We just talked about it. No longer are they the realm of crazy conspiracy theories and tinfoil hat activists. We've all seen too many of those theories turn out to be 100% true. What do other experts say about it may be too late to prep? You know, some time ago, because I started this podcast in 2014, and I'm sure sometime during one of those episodes over the years, I asked him, how will you know when the balloon goes up? So, you have to figure out what the question means and then read the, when you ask different people, for example, you can ask James Rawls to Fernando Aguirre and Selco. The conclusion is this. I'm giving you 3 warning signs of when it's too late to prep, and you can compare them with assessments from a number of other authors, security experts, bloggers, and prepping authorities. And again, I hope this gives you food for thought and helps you to refine your own prepping plans. I don't expect you to agree with all of them or any of them. But let's do this. How will you know when it's time to get out of Dodge? When the balloon goes up. It's a $40,000 question, really. When does one know when the balloon has gone up? How do we know when events have taken an irrevocable turn for the worse and the only way to survive is to get far away from our current location as possible? Myself, been doing this for a while. It's no secret I'm a prepper. I'm not trying to... It's too late for me to hide or deny it. You see, on the other side of the county which I live on, I'm guessing what, 15, maybe 20 miles from the Great Lakes Naval Training Center. It is the only naval training center for recruits in the United States. I am sure it has been targeted for a nuclear warhead, maybe 2. Now, I don't know how good the Russian guidance systems are. Granted, and how they're going to have the warheads configured, whether it's an air burst, ground burst, or burrow burst. Because when those MIRVs come in, they're coming in from low orbit. So they got some speed, and they're coming in. Now I figure, let's assume that, say, Russian guidance systems aren't hyper accurate. They can get within a couple miles of their target. I mean, at that point, what's a couple miles? So, I would have to go west to get the hell out of Dodge. And it would be a real mother getting there, I'm telling you. I understand that. My point is, you got to know where your location is as a target. I may post something like that. I don't know yet. Anyways. So, here's the $40,000 question. It's not what do I keep in my bug out bag rather than try to come up with a definitive answer. You can turn to numerous friends and acquaintances in the survival and preparedness niche and ask them for help. So, how do you know when the balloon goes up? And this is it's going to be up to you to decide which of these applies to you. Now, from Brian and Darren Payne of the P2E Emergency Preparedness Expo. Number 1, empty shelves in grocery and hardware stores. Number 2, unexpected bank holidays around ATMs. 3, large groups of looters. And 4, loss of life due to the police emergency services being overloaded. From Timothy French of the Americans Networking to Survive, that's ANTS, has an emergency plan that members can download. It has a section that talks about bugging in and when it's time to bug out. And it lists 3 threat levels and signs you should look for. They're all the same for all disasters because in the end, breakdowns in society are caused by a loss of utilities and supplies. The signs are level 1, no danger. Utilities are out, people are getting along. The OPSEC is low, neighbors working together. I hate that word OPSEC. It's so misused, it's pathetic. Level 2, some danger, utilities are out, people are getting very worried. The OPSEC is medium, should try to band with neighbors and block off your street. Yeah, that's going to work for me. Level 3, dangerous, utilities are out, people are desperate and looking for supplies, OPSEC is high, you should bug out or hide in place. So if you can see your neighbor's reactions to an event are your best indicator, and picking up on those little signs before things get bad will give you the advantage. Bugging out before things really get bad will be a judgment call for each of us we'll have to make for ourselves and our families. From Selko at the SHTF school. He says, here are the 5 first signs of a coming collapse. How I experienced it before war started. I'm sure it'll be very similar again. Symptom 1, more violence in your area. Symptom 2, group behavior changes. Survival brings people closer and makes others less human. Symptom 3, dead streets. Symptom 4, new leaders emerge. Symptom 5, nobody to trust anymore. From James Rawls, the famous James Rawls' survival blog. The 5 signals of an imminent societal collapse. Failure of any of the 3 American power grids with no subsequent restoration of power within 72 hours. This is important. A stock market collapse of 30% or more of the Dow Jones Industrial Average in less than 10 days. 3, simultaneous rioting in 3 or more major American cities. Number 4, news of an easily transmissible influenza pandemic with a high lethality rate and an outbreak anywhere in the U.S. 5, outbreak of war with 1 or more targets hit in the continental United States by a major nation state, or multiple targets hit by a terrorist group. This would include the use of nuclear, chemical, or biological weapons. From Randy Augsburger of the Prepared Christian. Number 1, warning from the government or other authority. This was a no-brainer. Much hate to say it, the government will give us a warning in some situations. Think Katrina. It would be a good idea to pay attention to what the talking heads are saying. Just run through your filter and don't disengage your brain. These can also include natural disasters and health issues like potential pandemics. I would add this personally to that. When you see the president, vice president, cabinet all disappearing from the public eye, that's because they went in. That's because they went to ground. That's why. Number 2, GMO crop failures. Number 3, talk of making precious metals illegal for private ownership. Number 4, martial laws declared anywhere in the U.S. And 5, widespread violent looting, which we saw the last couple summers. So there are some ideas of what to look for. Balloon goes up. Bad juju is about to come down on all our collective heads. With that said, start prepping now. Failure to do so is not going to be good for you. It just won't. Do it now. You don't have to go spend $10,000. I mean, if you got it, great. Go ahead and get it all now. Most of us don't. Got to get it bits and pieces as we can. A few cases here, a few cases there. That's how you do it. If you are independently wealthy, if you have money saved away, go ahead. Spend your 10 grand. The thing of it is, once you buy it, it's coming. You should have a place to store it. And how to get down there. So if you buy 10 grand worth of supplies, it's probably going to be stuck at your back door until you can get it in a case at a time to your basement or wherever the hell it is you're going to bug out to. Yeah, you got to think this through, boys and girls. And then once it's there, let's say, well, I'm not going to have it in my house. I'm going to put it in my bug out location. That's wonderful. How are you going to secure it? If you're not there, no one's there, how are you going to secure your $10,000 emergency supply catch? That's the question. Got to think these things through. All right, my friends, look, I'm not trying to panic you. I'm telling you, now's the time to start thinking about these things. You're going to have to. You know why? Because we're preppers. That's what we do. And I believe that Putin himself is inside a nuclear bunker, an emergency bunker. So I think his staff has been deployed to the bunkers as well. So, and I'll tell you right now, Putin is not going to be in the same bunker with his staff, his military staff. Too risky. $1 million bounty on his head, somebody's going to take it. And he knows it. Putin's not stupid, make no mistake. Has he miscalculated? Has he been given bad military intelligence? Absolutely. But that's another story. All right, I'm John Jeffers with the Jeffers Brief. Thanks for listening. Hope you got something out of today's show. Have an American day. Prep today, live tomorrow. Talk to you then.